and welcome back, and some eagle-eyed viewers in the previous episode may have noticed a little something new sitting next to the Centurion. And the story of what that is and how it got to be here actually starts with one of these. This is a 6AU6 vacuum tube pintode, and it is by far and away my most favorite vacuum tube. As a matter of fact, I like this tube so much, it is what I am using to build my entire vacuum tube computer. The processor portion alone uses 188 of these. And generally, the best way to find these is to buy large tube lots of unorganized tubes. And well, there's a little town about an hour from here, and there's a very nice gentleman there, Jim, that holds consignment auctions for vacuum tubes and ham radio equipment and stuff like that. And I was bidding on vacuum tubes, and I was actually getting into a little bit of a bidding war with someone. And out of nowhere, somebody else reached out to me and said, "Hey, I don't know if you know about this vacuum tube auction." And I was like, "Yeah, man, I do. I was actually bidding on some stuff in there." And he's like, "Wait a minute, does your username look kind of like this?" And I said, "Does your username look kind of like this?" And it turns out we were bidding against each other. And the gentleman that I was bidding against, his name is Colin, and we've been talking and exchanging, and he's become a really good friend of mine. And if you need a vacuum tube, this is the man to talk to. I went down to his place, which is about 4 hours from here, and checked out his collection, and I would say he has on the order of 200 to 300,000 vacuum tubes. Just an unbelievably huge amount of tubes. And he has a lot of really great ones, 6DJ8s, 12AU7s. So if you need a special vacuum tube, there is a link in the description below about how to get in touch with Colin, and he is the man to talk to. But what's sitting next to the Centurion is not vacuum tube related at all. It just so happens that when I was talking to Colin about vacuum tubes, he was also watching the Centurion mini computer series, and he said, "Hey, you know what? My mom has this old word processor that she bought new back in 1981 or so, and it's just been sitting in storage forever. And so maybe you can restore it or at least have some fun with it, because we're not doing anything with it." So I said, "Yeah, absolutely." And so when I went down to pick up a box of 6AU6s that he had set aside for me, I also loaded up this thing into the truck. And looking a little closer, it is a Wangwriter made by Wang Laboratories. So I threw it in the truck, drove it all the way back to here, and finally, here in this room, I've got my hands on his mother's Wang. No. What? It's mother's Wang? Come on. Even that one is too bad for me. Dude, you wrote the script. I didn't write the script. I don't write scripts. I just make it up as I go along. That's even worse. You do see how that's worse, right? I guess that is worse, huh? All right, well, there's no getting around the fact that Wang, the founder of Wang Laboratories, has a name that is very easy to crack jokes at. And, well, I don't want this series to devolve into just a comment section filled with Wang jokes on every single episode, so that is what episode 1 is dedicated for. Let's just go hog wild. If you have a top tier Wang joke, it's got to be top tier. I don't want no low effort stuff down there, but if you have a top tier Wang joke, put it in the comments of episode 1, and then from episode 2 on, we'll try to be more composed, rational adults. But you guys have carte blanche in the comment section for episode 1 here, so let me see those top tier puns. But we have the Wangwriter here in this room, and I don't know anything about it, but I got a lot of really cool stuff with it. So I think it's time that we pull it out, crack it open, and see what exactly it is, because I have a feeling that there's some very cool stuff inside of it. All right, here it is next to the Centurion. This is the main unit here, and you can see that while it's not small, it's not quite as big as the Centurion itself, but there is a lot of heft in this. It is very heavy. But he also hooked me up with the keyboard, the monitor, and a box of goodies. So let's just go through it one by one and take a look at everything that we got. We'll start with the box of goodies here. So we'll go ahead and grab it. And here we go. And well, right on top, it looks like we've got a tray for the printer, and I don't know what that is. I mean, it's shaped to hold paper, says front and rear on it. No clue what that goes to. So let's open this box up and see what kind of goodies are floating around inside here. Oh, wow, there's a lot of stuff going on already. That's very cool. Well, we'll go ahead and get this cable out of the way. Although, it looks like it has a telephone jack on this end right here. That's very interesting. So maybe that's modem related or something? Or maybe it's not related to the Wang at all. I'm not entirely sure. Right on the top here, it looks like we've got a micro rim pamphlet of some kind. We have some punch outs for maybe the keyboard or something, and then some cardboard here. Let's go ahead and set that off to the side, and then, oh man, look at this. We've got some Wang brochures or catalogs or something, Wang supplies. That is a blast from the past for sure. Oh man, these are so cool. I am tempted to slice the spine off and scan them in, so that way we have a digital backup of these. But if I don't slice the spine off, it's going to be very hard to scan these correctly. But well, for now, we'll just set those aside. Both of these are very cool. And then we have about 5 of these gray boxes that say one Wang ribbon cartridge. And yeah, there we go. Looks like a ribbon cartridge for the printer that's going to be on there. So we have 5 of those. These look like they're unused, maybe. Hard to tell, but either way, we've got 5 boxes of them here. So if the one that's on there is no good, maybe one of these is. And then over here on the right, we've got, well, more print stuff. This is Wang print wheels, and there are 3 plastic print wheels in this box. Oh, and we've got 3 more boxes of print wheels down there. So we have a ton of font choices to choose from. That is awesome. And then we have a still sealed box of Wang 0080 diskettes. Looks like there are 10 5 1/4 discs in here, double-sided, double density, soft sectored. That's awesome. And then in this box here, Wang ribbon cartridges. Looks like we might have even, oh my gosh, these are definitely brand new. They're still sealed. So even if those 5 over there are used, well, we've got 6 brand new ones right here in this box. And now we're getting to what I'm really excited about. We've got some 3-ring binders here with Wang written on them. This one looks like it might be a disk storage binder. Maybe you keep your software in here, or you keep documents that you have written and saved on a disk in here. But now, oh, we're getting to the bulk, the heft of it. This is the training workbook for the Wangwriter. It is huge. This is the glossary user manual. My God, I am gonna have to figure out a way to scan this, because I imagine there's not too many surviving copies of this in the world. That is an amazing piece of documentation there. And we have a complete another one down here. Also the training workbook, although, yeah, this one is the actual training workbook, which I guess tells you how intuitive or unintuitive this machine actually is. If you need a training workbook that's this unbelievably thick. But Oh man, that is awesome. What an amazing box of goodies. All right, next up, let's grab the monitor. Slide it out of the way here. And there we go. And the keyboard. And we'll just set this right here. All right, both of these actually still have their very beautifully made Wang plastic covers that just keep everything nice and neat, and they're actually still in really good shape. So we'll go ahead and pull the one off the keyboard here, and oh man, that is a cool keyboard. I don't know if it's a mechanical keyboard or a like foam and foil type keyboard. I am not enough of a keyboard aficionado to be able to tell just by the touch of it, but it looks to be an absolutely beautiful shape, and it has a very interesting layout that is obviously specialized to the Wangwriter. You have your 4 arrow keys down here, but you also have an up and down arrow key up here, and then instead of function keys, it's got a specific list of functions for doing word processing, apparently. It also uses a completely proprietary plug. It looks like there's only 4 pins, maybe the outside here is ground, so that would be 5 total connections, which is kind of low, I guess. I don't think you could adapt this to anything modern, not that you would want to, because it very clearly is supposed to go with the system it was intended to, and I intend to keep it with that system. Now, speaking of proprietary plugs, if we move over to the monitor here, it also has very interesting plugs, 2 of them. I imagine one of these carries a composite signal and the other carries power, but the monitor itself also has this nice plastic cover on it, so we'll go ahead and slide it off, and oh yeah, that is a cool looking monitor. It looks like maybe, I don't know, maybe 12 inches. It is very small. I mean, the keyboard itself actually dwarfs the size of the monitor, but man alive, that is a cool monitor. Now, there's no additional plugs or switches or anything on the back. There are some little controls over here on the left, presumably for brightness and contrast, but my God, what a beautiful setup. All right, and finally, the main unit here has got some serious heft to it. Kotaro-chan here is going to give me a little bit of emotional support while I try to get this thing into the center of the room. Yep, there we go. All right. It is it's not lightweight. Even though it's relatively small, it's got some serious heft to it. But like the monitor and the keyboard, it has this very nice protective plastic covering on it. So let's go ahead and just slide that right off the top. And oh man, what a beautiful machine. Oh man. All right, well, we can see very clearly that it's got a printer up here. If we lift that open, there's our printer ribbon and our little daisy wheel. So we can put new ones in right there relatively easy, but it looks pretty sparse and simple up there. I think it feeds the paper from the bottom, perhaps. So I imagine that the paper rests down here. We've got a big power switch here on the bottom, so I imagine that the power supply is housed in there. We've got a 5 1/4 inch floppy drive over here on this side, and I think that the computer is going to be housed in this side here. Now we can lift up these edges here and kind of maybe peer in a little bit, but I think what we need to do is we need to get these sides off of here so we can get a proper look inside and see what's really going on. All right, I think I figured out how to take the side off of it at least. We're going to lift this top panel up here, and there's a very large flathead screw right here. And I think if we loosen this screw up or remove it completely, that's going to let us slide this side panel off. Oh, yeah, there we go. And that's as far out as it leans. Maybe if I lift up on it a bit here. Yeah, there we go. Side panel completely off. All right, with the side panel out of the way, we get a look at the 5 1/4 inch floppy drive, which is right here. We can see that there's a cutout for a second 5 1/4 inch floppy drive down here, but there isn't a cutout on the side panel. So maybe that means that there were two different models, a one floppy model or a two floppy model, and this is just obviously the one floppy model. So they leave the mounting frame in place, but they cover it up with a different side panel, so you don't have a big gaping hole on the bottom here. But I guess that means that we could theoretically expand it to a second 5 1/4 floppy. We can see the ribbon cable for the floppy here runs up, and it actually snakes behind the printing mechanism over to the other side. And then the power for the floppy is this big braided cable here that goes down to, I can see a huge transformer in there, so that's going to be our power supply in there. But before we try to take a look at the power supply, let's get the panel off of the other side, because I can see a big screw up there that should let us take it apart in the exact same way. And this panel should just, oh yeah, there it goes. All right, and then we'll come up and off it goes. And oh, all right. Well, we've found the computer boards. That is awesome. It looks like there are 3 boards stacked, and these boards are huge. I would say they're actually bigger than a standard Centurion board. As a matter of fact, I've got the printer board for the Centurion here, and they're about the same height, but they look like they got a little more width to them. And just on this top board here, we've got a ton of driver transistors, and this chip down here looks like a Z80PIO chip. So probably this is the printer controller. Especially given that we have a ribbon cable here that goes directly up top that says line feed and roll and other printer control buttons up top. So this is probably just the printer control board. The boards that I really want to see are behind it, which I imagine is going to be the processor, video, input, output, memory. All of that stuff's got to be on those 2 boards. So I think we need to get all 3 of these boards out of the system and take a closer look at them. And well, I've been looking at it for a little while now, and I think I know how to do that. We'll start by just disconnecting all of the ribbon cables here, and then also the power plugs on the top as well as the side over here. Then there are 2 screws on the back here, and while I'm undoing these, you can see that it has a, looks like a quality assurance sticker that says September 9th, 1981. Then it looks like all 3 of these boards connect to each other with these large pin headers that have little locking levers, so we'll just rotate the locking lever. And then finally there are 3 wing nuts that we can undo, and the whole board should slide right off. All right, getting all 3 boards out was really pretty easy given how compactly everything was stuffed in there. And I've got them laid out on the table here in the same order that they came out. So this leftmost board was the frontmost board that we were looking at. This board here was in the middle, and then this was the rearmost board. And well, just going left from right, this is definitely the printer controller card. The Z80PIO chip here is, I believe, a peripheral input-output chip. So this is pretty much just solely for controlling the printer. And given that that's such a quintessential part of the design, it's not surprising that that takes up an entire board. So we'll move over to this board here in the center, which has a lot more really exciting stuff on it, because right here is a Z80 CPU. That's right, this is a Z80 machine. It was advertised as the Wangwriter and a word processor, but it is very clearly a full-on computer. Has a Z80 CPU, a Z80 PIO, and a Z80 CTC all right here. And then there's an Intel P8272. This is a floppy interface chip, which makes sense because it looks like we have the 2 floppy plugs here at the top. Now there is a little ROM here. I did put a piece of tape over it because it wasn't covered, but this is a 2716. Now I did some reading online, and it does need a system disk to start, which I don't believe that I have. but I also read somewhere that it could boot up into CPM. But CPM is going to take up more space than the 2K that this ROM affords us, I think. So you would probably need a CPM boot disk as well. But either way, I'm going to pop this ROM out. Being a 2716, it should be pretty easy to dump. So I'm going to pull the contents off of that and save it. And then moving over to the final board over here, this board I believe is split into two sections. The bottom section here is very obviously the memory. It's an AM9016. This is a 16K by 1-bit dynamic RAM or DRAM, and there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of them in a line here. So that's our 16K of memory right there, and then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 columns of it, which gives us a total of 96K of RAM. That is a huge amount of RAM for a word processor from 1981. I mean, that blows most of home computers completely out of the water. Now, above this is where it gets interesting, because we have a TMS 9927. This is a TI-built video chip. So this thing definitely has some capability for on-screen graphics. And then the video circuit up here has its own DRAM right over here in these NEC chips. And it also has its own little EEPROM over here too. Again, I put a piece of tape over it so that the little window isn't exposed. Now, each one of these boards has this really cool edge connector here that stabs into the board behind it and accepts the board above it. And looking at the chassis, there's 2 extra slots. So you could theoretically build one of these Wangwriters out with 5 total cards. But I have absolutely no idea what you would put in the additional 2 card slots, unless maybe they were thinking that they would have a hard drive controller as well, so that could be a potential expansion. Maybe you could get a 5 1/4 inch, like 10 megabyte hard drive that you could stuff in that extra bay over there. But either way, these 3 boards, everything looks really clean with the exception of these 3 chips right here. And these are MOSTEC chips. So who knows if they're actually going to work. The pins on them look really pretty corroded. But it's just a Z80 CPU, a Z80 PIO, and a Z80 CTC. So if they are bad, they're socketed, I should be able to pop them out and get replacements relatively easily. All right, finally, let's see if we can get a look at the power supply. It looks like there's just 4 bolts holding it in place. I've already removed 3 of them, so we'll go ahead and remove this 4th one over here. And with it out of the way, the power supply should be able to just slide right on out. So let's go ahead and give that a shot here. Well, it's loose. Oh, there it goes. Well, we got to get the power cables kind of snaked through here, but there it goes. And it looks really pretty clean inside. I mean, it is pretty dusty, especially on the fan here. And the fan might be broken. It looks like it just kind of comes apart. I don't think it's supposed to do that. But the power supply itself looks like a big, just linear unit, and based upon the voltages that one of the ROMs needs, it's going to be generating +5, -5, and +12, and that matches up with the big filter caps that we have here. But on the power supply here, we can see we've got a couple bridge rectifiers going on, especially with these discrete diodes down here. That's very cool. And then there's some really big pass transistors on the back side. Now, I think all I'm going to do for this power supply is just take it out to the garage and blow it off with some compressed air. The capacitors here don't look bulging or like they've leaked or anything, and these really big filter caps over here are probably totally fine. So really, I bet this power supply is actually just totally okay. All right, I was planning on actually just finishing the video, the first episode here, after we took a look at the power supply, but man, everything is in so much better shape than I was expecting that it would just be a true shame if we didn't sling some electrons at it and see what happens. Now, I have taken some precautions. On the power supply, I pulled off that cooling fan that was definitely broken. There's no way that the fan part is supposed to just come loose like that. So I removed that one and I grabbed a spare chassis fan that I have from the Centurion. They're both the same 115 volt fan that actually even uses the same plug and are the same size. So it was just a really easy swap to bolt the Centurion fan in. And I also pulled out the two EEPROMs that were on the computer boards over there, the one on the CPU board and the one on the printer board. And I pulled all the data off of those and I've got it backed up on the computer. So if things go horrifically wrong, we at least won't lose the irreplaceable code that is on those ROMs. Everything else can pretty much be replaced. Now, I am not actually expecting a whole lot out of this because that Z80 CPU, the Z80 PIO, and the Z80 CTC all looked horrific. Those MOSTEC parts, I think, are probably going to need to be replaced. But, well, I've got everything plugged in. I've got the monitor and the keyboard plugged into the unit here. And I've got power going into the power supply. All that we got to do is flip this little red switch right down here. So here goes nothing. Oh, I heard the power supply fan spin up. That's good news. That means that my supply fan from the chassis of the Centurion is working fine. I do see a power light up here. Let's see, are we getting anything on the monitor? Oh yeah, we are. We are getting something on the monitor, but it's not great. The monitor is working. It is nice and bright. It's nice green phosphor on there. And yeah, the keyboard's working as well. If I push the lock key, it turns on. So power's making it to the keyboard, power's making it to the monitor, but obviously we're not running anything. There's not even a prompt or even a message that says insert a system disk or anything like that. So something is clearly not right. And you know what? I'm going to say it's probably the CPU. The pins on that look really, really rough. So now we're going to call it. Instead of after we looked at the power supply, we're going to call it here. I am just in love with this machine. I love these big business machines from back in the late 70s and early 80s. And I can't thank Colin enough for letting me look over this thing and hopefully get it running. We've got a lot more to come in the future. I really want to get this thing spun up and working properly. But I'm afraid we're gonna need a system disk for this. So if anybody out there has one of these or know of somebody who has one of these and has a system disk, if you could send me an image or even a copy of the disk, that would be absolutely mega. But barring that, I think if we start to learn enough about the system, we can potentially get CP/M to run on this, and that would be really exciting as well. But, well, for now, I'm gonna go look at new Z80 parts on eBay. Maybe I can find a reputable seller and get some non-MOSTEC replacements here. So I want to thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next episode.